All right, here we go. Gill Athletics Connections podcast listeners. Appreciate you, first of all, being here. We do these every week, every Monday. We drop a new awesome coach or behind the scenes track person. And just so thankful that you would spend time with us. I'm going to kind of get this done early instead of later. I'm just going to encourage you, if you find value in this podcast, whether it's this episode here, we've got a great guest today for you, or some of our past guests that we've had. I bet you someone else in your network would receive value as well. If you would consider sharing the podcast, however you listen to it, Spotify, Apple Tunes, Overcast, etc., sharing that on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, smoke signals, I don't know, whatever you cool cats are doing nowadays. I'm a big texter. Well, I'm a big tweeter. That's where most of my stuff comes from, but I'm big on the text messaging and email as well. That works as well. Just sharing, that word of mouth thing is kind of the best thing there is, right? So if you like the podcast, we would just be so blessed if you would share it with someone else. Okay, let's get done with that. That's all the formalities, blah, 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 blah. Now let's get to today's guest. Help me welcome head coach of Keystone College in beautiful Pennsylvania, Mr. Ian Hankins. Ian, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great.
I didn't even check, man. I want to always be respectful. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Ian?
Yeah.
Okay. Because it could be Ian, Ian. I mean, I'm sure you've heard it several ways.
When I go to Starbucks, it could be E-N, E-I-N, E.N. So
E-I-O-U, whatever. Hey, sometimes it's just important that they call you. Whatever you call me, that's fine. Just call me, man. Yeah, exactly. Well, Ian, man, that's it. That's exactly it, man. That's the beauty of our market, our industry, right? I can just say coach, and I'm going to get it right 99% of the time. Even athletic directors, I say coach, they're like, hey, what's up? So, man, let's learn a little bit about you. I'm super excited. Appreciate you, hopping on the podcast with us today. Let's start back, kind of getting our Wayback Machine here. Where did track and field start for you? Were you one of these guys that was doing club at 6 years old, or high school, or how did it start for you?
So I was a big baseball player growing up. It was my love. I had a great passion. I actually played in high school as well. But really, track and field started as DC I was from the DC area, and they did these DC Winter Olympic Games hosted at the DC Armory right across from RFK Stadium, which was the former stadium of the Redskins football team now. And Washington Nationals played there when they first came to DC. But they did these games. So I started training in, I believe I was in second grade doing these Winter Olympics. And I found out I was pretty good and pretty fast. So that's where it started. And then at some point, I think I was in fourth grade, my mom reached out to the middle school coach and asked if my brother and I could join the middle school team when we were in fourth and sixth grade. So we ran middle school, which they had practices with the high school, Wilson High School up in the DC area. And I found out I was faster than a lot of the middle school and high school kids just as a fourth grader. So I knew I was fast on the base pass, but I never really thought of it as a sport. And then after fourth grade, my dad took a job in Alaska. So I moved out west in the last frontier. Not many people lived in DC and Alaska. I've lived in both states. So
yeah, you got a whole East Coast and West Coast thing. So where do you sit on the whole East Coast, West Coast rivalry, man? You Tupac, Biggie, what are you doing here from DC all the way to Alaska?
I'm not really sure. I'm pretty diverse. I have diverse military family, so I don't anywhere is home. So right now it's Pennsylvania. So.
I'm not sure we have too many listeners in Alaska, so I'm going to go ahead and make a crack at Alaska in the hopes that I don't get a blowback here. Has Tupac and Biggie even made it to Alaska? I feel like they're a few decades behind, maybe, because it's hard to get there, right? So maybe they'll still find out who Tupac is one day.
Yeah, Alaska is definitely behind in the times. When you go to a movie theater out in Valdez, Alaska, where the Exxon Valdez oil spill was, you would go to a movie theater and the movie has probably been out for a few years, and then it will get around to the big screen out there in Valdez. So
I always feel bad. I love, we do a business. I almost said we do quite a bit of business in Alaska, but that's not true because there's not many tracks and stuff. But, it's a little bit like Hawaii. Anything shipping to Alaska is murder. I mean, it's so expensive. You can't just, if you're, Ian, you can call me and say, hey man, I forgot I need a baton. Can you ship me a baton? It's like, yeah, no problem. Here's $8-9, to ship UPS or whatnot. Anybody in Alaska calls me and it's like, hey man, can I get a baton? It's like, yeah, here's $100 to ship a baton to friggin' Alaska. So I have a lot of respect for Alaska. You got to be real good planners up there. But Ian, you said in high school that you played baseball and ran track. Is that right?
Yeah. So like
how
when in middle school in Alaska, the bug for cross country really started. We had a really good high school program. So we won the state championship. So I'm like, cross country is something I really want to do. So then after 9/11, my dad got a job back in DC, starting the Department of Homeland Defense.
Oh,
so,
wow.
Big time. So we moved back east. And then, so it was right before ninth grade. So I was really good on a baseball team, American Legion, out in Valdez. And we had a really talented team. We went to a state tournament, but it was time to move back east and go to baseball camp. So I would have a chance to try out for the baseball team at St. John's High School in DC. So I went out there for baseball camp. I met, the first guy I met at St. John's was Matt Aiden. He was playing baseball there at St. John's. He was a upperclassman. I was coming in as a freshman, and then he's now the strength coach for the Nationals. So we will circle back to that at some point during this interview. But the model of the baseball team was I was a catcher, and they had the pitchers and catchers running cross country. So pitching is an endurance sport. So like they thought that was a good benefit for the program. We were top 25 in the nation at St. John's. And then history was made. I got the running bug and never turned back. I started as like a 24-minute 5K runner. Not very good. Probably the 8th best freshman on the cross country team. But then by the end of the season, we had our season interrupted. The DC sniper, I don't know, people in the DC area. Yeah, so it shut down our season pretty much until the championship time. So like, if you weren't training, you weren't getting better. But like, I loved running, and I thought I could do it pretty safe in my neighborhood. Hopefully, I don't.
No, that's some motivation. All right, you got to run and duck. I mean, I don't mean to make light of it because it was a terrible thing, but holy cow.
Yeah, so they didn't allow outdoor sports.
Sure.
So like that was really challenging coming into a new school, getting to know my classmates. But cross country is great because cross country is like a family. Then time championship comes, it was a very challenging course at Lake Fairfax. The WCAC is always a really competitive conference, especially on the track side. So cross country is hilly. You have creek crossings. It's true cross country out there. So like, I ended up getting 3rd place. I don't know where that came from, but I'm like, man, cross country. This is a sport I'm pretty good at.
Like that hooked you right there.
I was forever hooked. And then that summer, I decided to do some club sports with Coach Dunham, who ran DC Red Wings, and he coached at the University of Maryland for a little bit. He was at Eleanor Roosevelt, won a bunch of Penn Relay championships. So it was a really good atmosphere. And then we went to Mount St. Mary's for a cross country camp, and I just loved the sport. I really had no mechanics. I was a guy who would swing all over my body, and then it was fixed. And then sophomore year, I had another really good year in cross country. And then I made the decision to stop playing baseball and go full on cross country, track and field, whole 9 yards. I knew I was a distance runner. So unfortunately at the high school level, track and field's not good for a distance runner. Mile and 2 mile, those are too short.
So you're a distance guy, not
I'm a true distance runner.
2 mile is still mid distance for you.
In high school, I ran about 4:56 and a 10 flat. So true distance runner. So
you needed the 5K, 10K, and longer, huh?
So during the recruiting process, I knew I was a 10K runner. So Easy sell.
So as you finish up high school and you're looking at colleges and you're a 10K runner, where was coaching at this time for you as a career? Did you even think of it as a career, or were you going to go back? Were you going to go in and become a CIA agent or Department of Homeland Services or whatever like that?
So basically the schools that I was recruited at, I was looking at the top majors at the school. Like I was pretty much undecided. So like I was looking between really 3 schools. Christopher Newport, I was going to go.
Great school.
They had a 5-year teaching program, so I was going to go in that, become a math teacher, and probably coach as well. Then I was also looking at York College out in Pennsylvania, and I was going to go. I think I was business there, and then Muskingum had a really good science program, and so I went to Muskingum. Ultimately, my grandfather went to seminary at Princeton, and he knew a bunch of buddies who were professors out in Muskingum, went to Muskingum. So it's Presbyterian, and my grandfather was a Presbyterian pastor, and he was actually the chief of chaplains during his Navy career.
You've got a lot to live up to, man. Dad was Homeland Security. I mean, holy cow, man.
My brother went to Browns and is a professor out at Chapman. So like, and I'm just stuck coaching. So.
I was about to say, and here you are. Now, I always chastise our guests. Don't ever put the word just in front of coach, man. You are not just a coach. You are a coach. That's a big deal. We all have the opportunity to affect lives of others positively where you are. So whether it's a coach, teacher, professor at Chapman, because you're a Brown graduate, holy cow, that's awesome, man.
So I ultimately went to Muskingum. I was going to do forensic chemistry because I was hooked on CSI at the time.
Yeah.
Like nice. I did a history of medicine class that I loved, had a great teacher in high school. So that's why I really found my passion. But there's this thing called internships and you have to go to the morgue when you're in like forensic chemistry. Oh, right. And long story short, I passed out. So
no, hold on. We got to explore this. So you have to go into a morgue, which would be intimidating for 99% of us out there for sure. So you go in, this is part of your internship for forensic science. And what was it? Was it the first body or the smell, or was it
the smell? It's just terrible.
Yeah. And so you pass out, you wake up and immediately start filling out your major change.
Yeah, I go to my advisor the next day. I'm like, I want to be a PE teacher. And she's like, that's a terrible idea. PE is not really a thing anymore. Like you have to work at a bunch of different schools, and like, it's going to be really challenging to find a PE job, even though Muskingum had a really good phys ed program. So there's a lot of coaches that come from Muskingum. Like there's coaches for the Patriots. The late Donna Newberry, who are known for softball. She's like the all-time winningest coach in D3 history in softball and basketball. Wow. And she was part of one of the founding people of Title IX. So really making
from Muskingum. Wow.
Yeah. So like there's a WNBA coach, Dan Hughes, who's won championships there, coached Team USA. So so in the coaching world, there's a lot to live up to just from Muskingum.
Yeah. I want to know, did you tell that advisor when he or she was like, it's a terrible idea? Did you look them in the eye and be like, yeah, but there's no dead bodies? That's a big deal for me.
And my grandma was a PE teacher. Like she had a long time career, and she actually was a GA under the guy who founded Mount Sac Relays out in California. So,
wow, that's a great connection.
Man. Yeah. So like we were really excited when the Olympic trials was supposed to be out in Mount Sac.
Yeah.
Like it was going to be a whole reunion. She was going to introduce me to all her coaching friends. And she was actually a tennis coach, not track. So yeah.
We won't get into that because the whole weather thing. People were dissecting the weather between Eugene and Mount Sac area. That's not fair, man. We can't predict the weather. All right, let's move on.
I mean,
go ahead.
I went to the Olympic trials in 2008, and man, it was hot then. So like,
yeah, I was there as well, and it was gorgeous. I loved it. That was
yeah,
was it 8 or
beautiful.
12 was the big, I mean, it's Eugene, so this is gonna be a terrible question. Was it 8 or 12 was the big rainstorm during like the decathlon, Ashton's decathlon? I think it was 12, maybe.
Yeah, I think that was 12.
Yeah.
2008 was the All-Oregon 800 team, which was
Oh,
pretty awesome to watch.
okay, Mr. Distance Guy, because I am the opposite. I am not a distance guy. It really hurt my feelings when you said you ran 24 minutes in a 5K as a freshman, and you said not that good. And I was like, yeah, I was trying to get to 24 minutes in a 5K when I was in high school. But you brought up that 800. I've been to a lot of track meets, so blessed to go to, all the top track meets, etc. That 800, and then the preceding, I think it was the very next year at NCAA's, the men's 1500, Oregon went 1, 2, 3. But those two races, and especially that 800, the loudest I have ever heard a crowd, not at a track meet, at a sporting event. I'm talking about football, basketball, baseball. It was deafening how loud it was when that 800 came to the finish.
Yeah, definitely. It was awesome. And actually, Christian Smith, like when I was coaching out at Baker, he's from that area in Gardner. And his like uncle or somebody worked at the hardware store where we would always get equipment from to fix up our track from when we had tornadoes or whatever.
Yeah.
So like,
welcome
it was
to
awesome.
Kansas.
It was awesome meeting the families there.
That's awesome. Yeah, that was simply an amazing race, amazing experience. It was unbelievable. Okay, well, let's get back to you, Mr. Ian. So you rightfully so change majors to phys ed. Smart decision. Way not to try to, some people talk about guts and grits and sticking to it. Sometimes there's a good lesson here that something's not right for you, and let's pivot to something else. So very smart of you, sir.
But actually, I didn't go phys ed because of what my advisor said.
Oh man, what'd you do?
I ended up figuring out what would get me out of college the fastest.
Oh.
So I went the business route.
Now you're speaking my language. How do I get out of college?
So I went business.
Nice.
Had great advisors there and great experience. And really fell in love with business. At the time, it was more like broad, not specific, but it was like business, accounting, econ. It was like one department. So I loved it. Loved the marketing and finance aspect of the business world. So but I knew I wanted to be in the running industry. Always had a passion for running. Knew I wanted to do something in the running industry. So I actually did my senior thesis on Nike. So had a lot of great interviews over there about Nike running towards social responsibility. So
did you get to interview the man himself, Phil Knight?
I interviewed Phil Knight, Alan Webb, Alberto Salazar. I don't know.
Wow.
But so I had a great experience there.
That's
and I
cool.
also did communication. So before podcasting was a thing, I was not running at the time, my junior year, because I had a heart episode. They diagnosed me with enlarged heart right around the same time of Ryan Shea. So it was very scary.
Oh, and yeah, that's right.
So I went to a bunch of cardiologists. Luckily the DC area has great hospitals. So luckily they found out that, nope, I'm just a runner with a big heart. So my resting heart rate was 27. That's Lance Armstrong territory. So it went to my head. I'm like, okay, I can do something. So basically the doctor said, as long as you don't run those 100-mile weeks, you can detrain the heart, get it back to a normal range and be healthy. And then that's when the coaching bug started. I was out pretty much my entire junior year. In the fall, I had a stress fracture because I was coming from high altitude 100-mile weeks in Kenya, because I have family out in Kenya, which is,
of course you do, of course,
pretty awesome. My aunt's actually Maasai, so she has the running trait in her bloodline. So
if it's okay, we're gonna I want to explore this heart thing a little bit, if it's okay with you.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that's something I'm not real familiar. I mean, I hear about it, right? Like I read the articles. You brought up the memory of Ryan Shea, which, if you've been in track for, a little bit over a decade, you would remember Ryan Shea and his untimely death. So how did that hurt? Because, okay, dummy here, right? I'm a public relations major, so I know nothing of science. I can barely spell science, right? You would think, enlarged heart, big heart, that's the muscle, the engine of the body, right?
Right.
27 heart rate, resting heart rate, which, I'm smart enough to know, lower heart rate was, stronger heart, it's pumping more blood each pump, right? There are so many exercise physiology majors listening right now that are just laughing, stumbling through this. But what through the doctors and through your experience, why was the enlarged heart bad for you and your health and running? And you mentioned that they said, well, if you don't do the 100 miles a week, so you can, did you say retrain or detrain the heart to get to a more normal size, I guess? Talk me through that a little bit. Yeah.
So basically, like, what I found out through this whole process is it's really important to go see a specialist who
Sure
has a specialty. So like this particular doctor had a great amount of patients who were like Olympians and high caliber athletes. So she understood an athletic heart, which is like not the scientific term, obviously.
Yeah,
but
different from the ticker that's in mine right now. Yeah, mine's just trying to limp along here. It ain't trying to run 100-mile weeks and fast 5Ks and 10Ks.
Because I also had like two different, like I had one coach my freshman and sophomore year who was more quality, and then junior senior year he was more scientific about the energy systems, more mileage, which is awesome as an athlete. Like I really developed my junior and senior year, but with the heart thing, like it was really scary when a doctor says, "Oh, you need to come home now. We need to do surgery." Like heart surgery is a big thing. So my parents, being my parents, who really care about me, and they're like, no. We need answers. We need a second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. I think it got up to 9 opinions, and like every doctor was different in how they wanted to treat me. Like one doctor wanted to put a pacemaker in, have heart surgery. So like that was pretty scary as a junior.
Sure. What are you, 20 years old? Yeah. I'm talking about opening up your chest. Yeah, I'd be scared for sure.
And then the Ryan Shea thing, when I found out what I actually had, I'm like, oh, I don't want to just like be running and like drop dead. Because basically what happened, I was sitting in class, and it was luckily enough, it was a sports med elective, because I was thinking about getting into the running industry, maybe coaching. I don't know what I wanted to do with my life. But like, so Professor Blood, he knew what to do. He cleared out the class. I don't remember anything. I woke up. I was really tired. I'm like, I don't know what happened.
So this is the second time you've passed out.
Yeah. So like it happened 3 times.
Oh man.
So then they started doing like tests, and
then they were like, well, maybe something's wrong here. Maybe we should look into this.
Because they always had me do like additional testing and blood work, because I have a really low resting heart rate, and the alarms sound like, if you have anything under like a 60, like the bells and whistles go off, and they're like, emergency.
See, my doctor has never had that. Every time he does my history and heart rate, he's like, yo, bro, man, that's not good. Like, did you just run a 5K? What's wrong with you? mine's the opposite.
So like I naturally have high red blood cells. So like I'm pretty much, then it got to my head, because I'm like, oh, this is what Lance Armstrong's resting heart rate is. I'm gonna be really good.
Right.
And then like, so I made a decision. I had a decision to make: have surgery, not have surgery. Ultimately, I went to not have surgery. I thought my running career was pretty much over at that point. So I had a heart-to-heart conversation with the trainers at Muskingum.
Come on, did you do that on purpose? that was good. A heart-to-heart. That was good. Come on, man. I gotta give you props. That was funny. That was good.
So with Coach Gleason, the trainers, we came to the decision that it will be my choice, but take my time, and then Muskingum hosted big invitational every year. There'd be like 25 teams. So like he said, I'm a big part of the program. He was a first year head coach at the time. And then I was the upperclassman. We had a pretty young team. We had a big senior class that graduated the year prior. So we were pretty young. I was one of a few juniors that still stuck it out with the coaching change. And then basically, so he gave me meet management responsibilities, which I'm like, man, this is awesome. I love running a meet management. So I'm like, at that point, I'm like, I think I want to go the GA route. So I started applying to GA jobs, and then he's sat me down. He's like, you really shouldn't be a GA at Muskingum. You need to spread your wings, get out, and really advance your career.
So what was his reasoning for that? Because we just had this conversation a couple of weeks ago with the head coach of University of Pittsburgh about athletes going into, when we were talking specifically GA positions at the same school. And so how this, this kid goes on from a Saturday, he runs a meet, and then on Sunday they're now a coach. And you used to hang out with the kids or with the teammates and playing Xbox and things like that, and now you're supposed to be running workouts and have that respect, that separation as a coach. What was your head coach? Who was this? Let's give shout out to this.
It's Coach Gleason.
Okay, so
he's still there. So
awesome. What was Coach Gleason's? Oh, that's awesome. I love that he's been there for that long time. Awesome. Shout out Coach Gleason. What was Coach Gleason's reason about, like, hey, maybe you need to experience something else?
Just, he's like, even though you had two head coaches in your time here and very different philosophies, like that will definitely help you as a coach, but you really need to get out, build your resume. So like, it's not just like you got handed a job. Like you really have to work for it, because he worked for his position, right? Obviously. So like he thought he wanted to push me to be my best self. So I definitely understood that. But then after 4 weeks of not running, I missed the sport. I missed running. I'm like, well, it was the week of the All Ohio Championships. I went into Coach Gleason's office. I'm like, put me in the 10K, Coach. I haven't run in 4 weeks, but I'm good. And then I ran the 10K. It was my bread and butter. Like, loved the 10K. I wasn't like my freshman year. I tried steeplechase. Didn't work out too well.
Best distance event ever.
Awesome event. Love to coach it. But at Ohio Wesleyan, it was March or April day. Ohio has crazy weather. It was definitely snowing. On the first water barrier, I flipped it, face planted. Oh, I was cold. I was like purple by the end of the race.
Oh, man.
After the race, I go to Coach Cooper. I'm like, put me in the 10K.
It's like, screw these barriers. Let's move up.
So then I was a 10K runner. So like,
how did that 10K work out after 4 weeks of no training, though?
He said I was peaked. I was well rested. I had a heart of Lance Armstrong, so I was motivated.
A heart of Lance Armstrong. You're recovered. You had a lot of rest. You got to put rest into your training, right? So here's 4 weeks of rest.
And it takes about 6 months to a year to really adapt to a new training system. Like I had a terrible cross country season, but was really looking good in track before I started passing out all the time. And then, so like
he says so casually.
So usually I was a guy who didn't really care too much about pace. My freshman and sophomore year, so I was the guy who would go out of hell and just push the pace from the gun until I faded.
Faded or passed out, one or the other.
Faded or passed out, yeah. So then this was really where I got to learn how to race. Because I knew I had paced myself, because I wasn't trained for this at all.
Right.
I wanted to finish the race, because not finishing a 10K as a conference champ my freshman year, I'm like, I'm never doing that again. So I really ran a smart, even pace race was within like 10 seconds of my PR. So I ran the race of my life.
4 weeks of no training. Wow.
So I'm like, hey, I'm hooked. Let's get ready for conference. So 2 weeks later, ran the OAC championships, super competitive conference, always have nationally ranked teams in there. Mount Union's the powerhouse at the time. It was Ohio Northern and Heidelberg.
Yeah.
So like I never scored at the conference meet until my junior year, and then snuck out an 8th place finish. I'm like, man, this is going to be good news for cross country. Let's put in the work. The training's clearly working. On the no training, I don't know which.
We just take the summer off and run cross country.
That's what my coach said. He's like, well, I guess you don't have to run this summer. Kids don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you scored. That's a big deal. Especially, I mean, that's a big deal because, you know, I believe where you are is what's important. So regardless of what conference, state meet, etc. But you're right, that OAC, that's a kind of a murderer's row conference there for D3, man. So squeaking out any points there is amazing.
And then cross country, I had a really good summer of training, no injuries, no issues. Come into the fall, ready in shape. Like my senior year was the best year of my life in college. Awesome. Anyway, like I PR'd every single meet from September until May.
Wow.
So it was an awesome experience.
That
really
is
adapted
awesome.
to training. Shout out to Coach Gleason.
Yeah.
Like as a true 10K runner, my 5K PRs were always in my 10Ks. And then usually until my junior year, they were my first 5K. And so I had 5K to go. But then All Ohio Championship 10K my senior year, I was in the mix to be all Ohio. It was a tough race. I had 2 miles to go, and Coach Gleason said it's going 2. So he meant going 2 laps. I thought he meant go with 2 miles to go.
How did this finish? This doesn't sound promising.
So after PRing my first 5K, I took off like a pow, capped the field. It was a super windy day.
Oh no.
I think Devin Butcher from Heidelberg was out front, had a massive lead. We were really working in the pack to close the gap, and then I really screwed up the entire race plan. And then I held him off until like a lap to go. And then I didn't have a kick anyway, so it probably didn't matter. But then I finished the race 2 seconds away from the school record that was set in the early 70s. So I was like, man, if I just went a little later, I probably would have had that school record. And then they got broken the next year by a freshman he was a freshman when I was a senior, so his sophomore year he broke it by a good bit. So that was fun.
Well, let's move back into coaching. So you go to do a grad assistant position, not at Muskegon. Where did you end up going?
So didn't get any jobs. Applied to over 100. I had notes on my bulletin board of every rejection I had.
Oh, yeah.
So then I reached out to the Georgetown Running Company. Ben Cook, he was in running with the Buffaloes. He was the general manager at the time. So he's like, I really like your social media presence. Let's start up this online store. So I did at the time did the first of a state-of-the-art like virtual shoe fitter program.
Really?
So like it was state-of-the-art at the time. Now I bet every company probably does it.
Yeah.
Probably should have trademarked that. Miss out on the big dollars. But, so I was in the running industry, ran events for Georgetown Running Company, and then I coached at my high school on the side. And then, so that was awesome. Had the school record in cross country on both the boys and girls side. Had the best finish in WCAC, a really tough high school conference. Got 3rd place when before that, the best finish was like 4th. And in recent times since since I graduated, they haven't touched, like, they were bottom of the conference. So like really built that program up. Then January rolls around and I started in the more in depth in the running industry. I got a position with the Track and Cross Country Journal as a marketing associate. So did all the social media and stuff like that.
So what year is this roughly?
This was 2010.
I mean, we're sitting here in 2021 and, social media is like oxygen now, right? Like it's all around. Yeah. Even in 2010, it seems like not that long ago. It was a decade ago. It wasn't all that long ago. Social media was not a big deal. We were kind of in social media 1.0 back then. So you were kind of in social media early.
Yeah. I was the first group of college people on Facebook at the time. At the time, you had to have a .edu account to be on Facebook. So and then I really loved marketing and really promoting. Although when I did graphic design, my professor said I'm the worst artist he ever saw, because I was just in the impression you just like do everything digitally. I didn't know you had to draw like sketches and but like I loved the marketing aspect. Really got into social media right at the beginning of it, really. And then did this Track and Cross Country Journal with a couple coaches out in the Midwest, like Matthew Buns, he was at Nebraska Wesleyan, and then Jason Hawley, he was at a community college in Iowa, I believe, at the time. So it was a publication at first. Now it's all digital. And then from there, I was applying to GA positions all the time. State didn't matter at the time. I was just dating my now wife at the time, so I didn't really care where I lived.
Yeah, you're very mobile.
And then this was the beginning of Skype as well. So like did a lot of Skype interviews where it was a good experience. I was a finalist for several of GA positions, and I'm like, I'm going to college, so I didn't really think about coaching high school track. And then I'm like, well, didn't get any jobs, so I need to do something coaching. I love coaching in the fall, so I reached out. Walter Klein just took the head coaching job at St. John's High School, and here's the strength coach. He does a lot of work with professional athletes, DC United, the Washington Nationals. Like that's where the Matt Iden story comes full circle. He worked harder with Matt Iden, really developed him in his minor league career, and now he's the head strength coach of the World Series champions Washington Nationals. He does a private business. So he was actually the college roommate of Brian Fetzer, who was the longtime coach at UVA.
Yeah. Hey, and shout out, Fetzer has been on the podcast. He has just been named the athletic director. I don't remember the name of the high school. I'm so sorry. I just know it's in Cincinnati. So I'm excited for him. I've known Fetzer forever, and I love him to death. Good friends. He's going to do, I believe it's a private school in the Cincinnati area, which, there's some amazing large and great high schools in that area. He's going to do a great job as an athletic director.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's cool. What a connection there. That's awesome.
Yeah, so an awesome connection, and really how my career really took off. Like I did some performance consulting with Walt Klein with his private business, and we had a great track season. Took a team that was 9th the previous year, got them 3rd with a lot of WCAC champions. Wow. Which is, most of those people go D1. So like that's big time high school track and field. Like it's mostly known for football and basketball, but honestly, track and field is right with those sports. Wow. Baseball, basketball, football, track and field. WCAC's was at in the DMV area. Wow. So like then I had an interview with Baker University out in Kansas. Yeah. And Walt Klein was a GA out at Fort Hays State a long time in the late 90s, early 2000s. And he actually coached the head coach, Zach Kindler, who was a national champion javelin thrower. Yeah. He was going to go to Olympic trials. He was highly ranked in the US, and then he blew out his elbow, and then he went into coaching, and then just got to Baker on the cusp of greatness, and they were coming off a conference championship in track and women's cross country. So they both had the same college coach, Coach Krub, who's now an official. He basically officiates every meet out in Kansas. So I got the job at Baker. So
when you were, I love your persistence, right? Like, 100 rejection letters, you said, you got them all on the wall. I always kind of am on both sides of that, because on one hand, I'm like, yeah, I get that. I see the motivation of like, I'm going to show all you guys that you made the wrong decision. But I'm also on the other side of it, where I think about like, well, that wasn't where you were supposed to be. You're going to end up where you're going to be, so I understand it. But what I was curious about, you're working with that baseball trainer. You obviously have a love and passion for baseball. And before you start, I know you baseball people, before you start spouting off all your stats, I can't stand baseball. I know none of it. Okay. So you're not going to impress me. I know nothing. I played 5th grade baseball, had a 0 batting average, and was like, not for me. Let's move on. But I was curious, did you consider, you almost like, it feels like you almost had like the split of like, I could go track or I could go baseball. Did you consider staying in the baseball and performance coaching type realm, or was it always like, no, I'm a track coach, I'm going to coach track?
Well, I knew that's where the money is. Obviously, it's not in track.
Oh, okay. I was about to say, let me make sure we're talking the same thing. Baseball, right? Okay. Yeah.
Baseball.
Perfect.
So I thought about being like a general manager or something like in the front office. Like I wasn't confident at the time of my ability to like critique the running mechanics. Being a distance runner, we don't focus on biomechanics at all. Now I do a lot because of my work with Walt and like vets. Like I really focus on mechanics, and it really shows in my career. But like I thought like maybe the front office, but like at the time I wasn't comfortable in really critiquing people on their performance and getting them faster.
So it was more like, yeah, I'm going to go track then, because that's what you keep using the term bread and butter, which I love. But that's like your bread and butter. Like, yeah, I'm a track guy at heart. At heart. Well, that was unintentional. unintentional. I love that. I'm always curious about baseball track combo people, because it's a big competitor for us, right? Like baseball season is right at the time of track season. So I'm always curious about that aspect. So you go to Baker, which is a beautiful camp, Baldwin City, maybe Kansas.
Beautiful Baldwin City, Kansas.
There it is. Yeah, I used to live in Chinook, Kansas, so I know all about Baker, man.
Yeah. Man.
How'd you like working for Zach and at Baker? God bless Zach.
Loved working with Zach. Like he was more like a father figure. Like he really pushed me to be the best self. Like he would get on my case all the time. First time trial, I accidentally deleted all the times. So like I'm like, day one, I'm gonna get fired. Oh man.
Oh no.
So
like all the splits, all the times, all the data.
All the splits. So like I was like asking like each athlete, what did you run? What did you run? And then he comes up and he sees my clipboard. He's like, why is nothing recorded?
No.
So I blame like the manager. I'm like, he didn't write the times down.
Oh man. You're like, all right, maybe this baseball gig, maybe I am a baseball guy.
So I thought I was done there, but like, no, it's like a love-hate relationship. What you need to push you to be like, he wanted me to be a head coach. Like he said it from day one. So he gave me responsibilities with the budget with my business background. He gave me meet management responsibility since he knew that's what I loved. We hosted the cross-country conference championships and outdoor track and field conference championships. So like he gave me a lot. And then we hosted 2 cross-country invitationals a year, and then two college invitationals and 2 high school invitationals. So like we did a lot of track meets, which was our fundraiser, which was awesome. I love the NAIA. It has a lot of quirks with the marathon and the race walk. Yeah. So he's like, here's books on the race walk, YouTube it. And then, so I got to be a pretty good race walk coach in my time there. Like we had a lot of success. We won 12 conference championships in my 2 years there. We put Baker on the map. Like Zach's a great administrator, and like he was really organized. So like we ended up having a top 25 team in the nation. Our cross country team got 10th at nationals, and we like bear hugged, ran the wrong direction, ran like a mile in the wrong way to try to tell our team that people thought we won the national championship. That's how excited we were.
That's awesome. Good for you. Absolutely.
We got fifth in women's track. Like we had a really well-balanced team. We took like 26 people to the national championships in 2012. And of those 26, 22 were all Americans. It was unbelievable. Like,
wow, that's a good batting average.
Guys, I think were like 10th and women were 5th, just missing the podium.
Wow.
Missed the podium on the 4x4. So like it was very close. But like race walk, I became good at race walk. Like, did a lot of exercises, a lot of salsa dancing, trained him like a disc 5K runner. We would do a long walk and then two workouts a week. So
who has race walking? So NAIA has race walking. Does D3, is it just NAIA?
It's just NAIA.
Okay.
But like I coached the race walk out there, and like I got this girl who was had a gymnastic and dancing background. Didn't really do that's a sport, but like she didn't have a track background, but she loved distance running, and like I'm like, I got a spot for you, race walk. She went out, she qualified to indoor and outdoor nationals her first year doing the sport, and it was an awesome experience. Outdoor nationals, she knew we had a shot at the podium. At the time, we were in first place. She went out. She wanted to win that thing. Like, she was in first place. It came down to the finishing walk or kick or whatever you call it.
Look,
there was some DQs.
Race walkers are fanatics, so I am not going to say anything negative at all. Race walking is awesome.
No,
please do not tweet Michael Roth. I know you're listening. I love you. You are the most passionate person about track and specifically about race walking. And if it's an event in NAIA, and we know it's an event for USATF and it's an event for the Olympics and there's high school, you know what? Then it's an event. I don't care if you like it or not. Sorry, some people don't like the shot put. It's an event, so we gotta work with it.
So she ended up with a big school record, 4th place at nationals. So like we were still in the running, in contention, going to the final day. So that's
awesome, man.
And then with the marathon, like we would always go on a half marathon trip in December right after cross country. So they were coming off their cross country peak, and have a little fun trip before finals. Go to Florida, get some nice weather for a week, and relax at the beach and run a half marathon, qualify for nationals. And then I had a guy who missed the 10K by 0.01 of a second. And then he's like,
heartbreak.
He was a senior. So he's like, Coach, I'm qualifying the marathon. Let's do it. I'm like, you haven't run over 12 miles. How are you going to run 26 miles?
Right.
It's in like 2 weeks. He's like, well, I can run like a 14-mile run. I'm like, practice the water stations. I'm like, all right. So he went out, he ran a really smart race because he knew he wasn't trained. I told him about my story that
I was going to say that sounded like your 10K. Yeah.
So like he ran very smart. It was a fairly hot day. It was all right out in Indiana Wesleyan, a beautiful campus. Loved when nationals were there. It was like Olympic Village. Athletes stayed in the dorms. They have great food over there. Shout out to dining services at Indiana Wesleyan. so it's an awesome experience out there. But like he moved up gradually. I believe the NAIA record in the marathon was set that day. Like it went out fast, so like people were dropping all the time. I gave him his fluids and gels every 2 miles, so it was good. The year previously, Zach and I got lost on the course. Definitely my fault. he was kind of upset. And then but like this year we got it down, we got it right, and then he slowly ate up the field and ended up 4th All-American. So awesome performance.
So what do you got to run to get 4th? What did he run in the marathon?
He ran 2:30.
Yeah, okay.
On a hot day.
Still very respectable. I mean,
I think 2:16.1. It was like the NAIA record.
Jeez, yeah. Yeah, you run 230, man. You may not be a
Yeah,
pro, but you got all the respect in the world. Absolutely.
absolutely.
So what were you getting your graduate degree in while you were there at Baker?
So I got my MBA there at Baker.
Nice. Yeah, very good. Smart. And so what was next? Where did you still go want to be a coach? You got this MBA now. There's a lot of things you can do.
So same story as my GA. Applied and interviewed many different places. I got engaged in grad school, so I was getting married because I didn't know where we would live. So I'm like, I might as well seal the deal.
It's because he loved you. Because I know you're listening right now. What's her name?
Beth.
Beth. It wasn't because he just had to seal the deal. It's because he loved you, Beth. So I want to make sure he doesn't get in trouble here.
Absolutely. Like, she's a teacher. She's done all the Zoom stuff. She's doing Zoom summer school right now. So
God, if she's a teacher, hey, Beth, I know you're listening. God bless you. I have so much respect for teachers. I love coaches, but teachers, holy cow, man. So shout out to Beth.
Absolutely. So I'm like, I'm going to be a coach. I knew distance background's going to be a challenge because there's not many distance full-time gigs out there. You basically have to be a head coach. So I knew that from the get-go. So I applied to some head coaching jobs, some assistant jobs at bigger schools. I actually interviewed at the University of Alaska. So that was an awesome experience.
Yeah.
Back to my roots, I guess.
Yeah.
Lived there for a bit.
One of your roots. You got roots everywhere.
East Coast, West Coast, Midwest. I've lived there.
Oh, yeah. No joke. Wow.
So then no jobs, got married. Fun story, lightning struck our chapel during our rehearsal. Church went up in flames, so got married at Mount St. Mary's, where Beth went to college. So
wait, hold on. Did you say the church like on fire?
Yeah, on fire.
I'm not sure what kind of sign was that. Was that a sign of like, yeah, this is the right thing, or was this a sign of like, does anybody have any objections, or forever hold your peace and lightning comes down, man?
It's good luck.
Okay, good. Let's go with that. Let's just say it was good luck. Wow.
So luckily Mount St. Mary's had another chapel on campus, so just pivoted like a coach does, adapt.
That's right. Wow.
So then
it didn't stop you from getting married. That's the good thing. Good.
So then I coached back home in Maryland at Montgomery College, started a distance/cross country program there. Wasn't there that long, just there in the fall semester. And then I started thinking maybe I still want to do the business side of things. So I started looking at Under Armour, had some interviews there, and then Potomac State out in West Virginia called. They're like, we would love to bring you to campus, start a cross-country program out here.
Wow.
A small JUCO out in West Virginia. They're a branch of WVU. So it was an awesome experience. So
you started the program.
So I started the program at Potomac State. Got there with 0 athletes.
Wow.
No assistant coaches. So big task at hand.
Absolutely.
To build up programs. Got there in March, I believe. So not much time to recruit either. So I worked the phones, loved Kaiser, West Virginia. That's a different place. Loved it out there. It reminded me a lot of like Muskingum. So it loved, everybody's on a first name basis. Everybody knows you. So loved the job out at Potomac State. Started a program, JUCO level. It was a really good fit, and really, luckily, Kaiser High School, they're a powerhouse in West Virginia, 2A. They won state championship. They were giving me some good athletes. So it was easy build. And then West Virginia Tech, either the coach left or they cut the program. Something happened there. So I got a couple athletes on them. So I had a good foundation there starting in program, had healthy roster size on both the men's and women's side. And like Baker, I had the school record in cross country on both the men's and women's side. So I wanted obviously start the same thing at Montgomery College, although they shortly started a distance program there when they were more sprints and jumps heavy. So Potomac State got the program rolling. August came around about a week before our first practice, I got a call from Baker, and Zach Kindler has suddenly passed away tragically. He was only 35, left behind 3 young kids who I actually babysat a bunch of times when I was at Baker, when he would bring them to practice. He's like, I got practice covered. Watch my kids, make sure they don't do anything stupid. So love the guy to death. He was my mentor. And like, I was really lost at words at that point in time. So I flew out to Baker, I went into full coach mode, like contacted everybody on the team, which I pride myself on is my relationships with my student athletes. Like you gotta have great relationships. That's what makes or breaks a coach. So like I still text them to this day. And so I went out there, tried to like console them, grieve with them. I was grieving myself, went out there for the celebration of life, and like really there to support the family, because I got to know them really well. Like his brother would go on our trips with us. He would help drive the van, since at the time when I was a GA, I wasn't 25. So his brother had to drive because I couldn't rent a car.
So how long did you stay out there?
So I was there about a week. So I went to the funeral, and then like they just had like, so like that was really tough for them. Props to Tim Byers, who got the program under control, and it's still a flagship program in the NAIA. So like it was a tough year for them, but they ended up winning the hack championship that year, going to nationals. So like they still had a ton of success, and they still do to this day. So then I'm at Potomac State, started the team. First practice, I was like, everything we do is in Zach's name. We're going to honor him with this year and forevermore. So like everything I do is in Zach's motto of faith, family, and team, in that order. Like he was a big in his faith, big family guy. He showed me how to really balance work and life. Like that's the biggest takeaway I got from him. So like I live to that motto to this day. And then Potomac State, inaugural season, no expectations whatsoever. We were rolling. First meet, I'm like, man, that was pretty good. And the like meet director comes over, congratulations. What do you mean? You won. I'm like, whoa.
Wow.
What a start. So we got this huge trophy. It was like one of those like 3-foot trophies. No joke. Like it was kind of comical. Like, man. So like we went on a roll, like, and then eventually we got recognized by JUCO. Like we won the national polls, top 10 program. We won our conference championship, went undefeated in the regular season. Like, so our first loss was to a Howard Community College out of Maryland, who was a JUCO power at the time. Shout out to Steve Muscle. Man, he has a really good program there. He's now retired and coaching at the high school level. But like we got second place at regionals, 9th place at nationals. So it was an unbelievable first year. Like
you're like, I'm a genius.
Like this should be a movie at some point in time. Like my Baker teams, the Potomac State teams, they absolutely deserve to be in the Hall of Fame. Like unbelievable job by those teams. And then like we picked up momentum. We got the state runner up from West Virginia. So man, recruiting class looks awesome coming into second year program. But now people know who we are. So things got a little tougher. We have a target on our back now, but second year, same amount of success, conference champions again. Wow. We lost a really tough race to the number 2 team in the country at regionals. We got second place by, it was like 2 or 3 points. So really close battle. We had the region champion. Wow. Jared had an unbelievable year that year. As a freshman, he was run up in every single meet, gets to the region championship, first place. Region record, course record. So it was at Hagerstown. So
Oh yeah.
Spindler is the coach there, so he has a great career too. Man, that region was tough. Like,
yeah,
there's some good coaches in that conference and region, but then get to nationals. And like at Baker, we always had the term podium project, which means get everybody on the podium, get a trophy. I think it was a USA track and field motto at the time, but so I always use that motto, podium project. I told the team, we're coming in ranked 9th. We got 9th last year. Let's go for a trophy. Let's get on that podium. We have a good low stick and a good pack. So let's go out there and do our job, and we will come home with a trophy. So unbelievable race. Jared ran up front with a kid who East African. So really fast race out in Westfield, unseasonably day, 70 degrees. And it was a fun race to watch. We were slow moving up in the woods, but once we got into open ground, we moved up and ended up 4th, just missing out on 3rd place. I think there was 13 points that separated first and 4th place at that meet. It was unbelievably close.
I'm really impressed with the legacy of Zach here. Two ways. One is, you mentioned the motto of faith, family, team, and how that helped guide you as you were guiding Potomac State, right? But also going back to something you said earlier, we kind of glossed over, but it's super important. When you got there to Baker for your graduate program, he allowed you to partake in the budgeting and the meet management. That's really important when head coaches involve their assistant coaches in those parts of the program, scheduling, budgeting, budgeting of the scholarships, et cetera. That helps them become better coaches, so that when you become a head coach, you're not just on ground zero and you have no idea and you're learning on the fly. So when you got to Potomac State, you had ideas about how a budget should be run and how meets should be run and things like that. So I just love Zach. I wouldn't necessarily call myself a friend of Zach's. We didn't know each other that well, but we had plenty of interactions, and we were very friendly with each other. And it was hard not to be friends with that guy, to be honest with you. He's such a good guy. But I love that his legacy is moving forward, and you and I'm sure many other coaches and former athletes in their profession. So man, just love hearing that.
Yeah, I really hold Zach coaching tree too hard. I go, awesome. But he was a great guy. He gave me my opportunity. Yeah. He really pushed me to be the best I can be. And actually, I had a really long conversation with him the day before he passed, to get everything going at Potomac State. And I wish I had that call recorded, because he means a great deal to me. And to lose a mentor that early in my career, it was really tough at that time, especially since that's how coaching is. It's all who you know. So not having that point person, although I'm also in the Fets and Coach Klein coaching tree. So that helps, but not having the person who really knew me intimately as a coach and a person, and knows my work ethic and how I can run championship caliber meets. That is really hard, but he's really the backbone of everything I do to this day, and it's definitely helped me be pretty successful in my career.
Well, you're representing him and his memory extremely well. Yeah, and that's maybe one of the more important things I could tell you. That's you're doing him proud. I know he's proud. That's the best way of putting it.
Although I don't think he was that proud when I nominated him to be the president of the NAIA Coaches Association.
He'd been good. That'd have been good.
I wrote any nominations, I raised my hand. I'm Zach Kindler, because he had me go to the coaches meeting while he was enjoying the beach or something at nationals.
He forgot to give you instructions of, look, man, don't raise your hand. Let's just move on.
So I gave his bio and everything, and they elected him. So
nice.
And so he was the president his last 2 years at Baker. And he's done a lot with the sport. So
and
his legacies.
And he never sent you to a meeting after that.
Well, it was my last year at grad school. I was busy out anyway.
So where does Potomac State. Let's continue moving on here. Where did Potomac State go, and where did you go after that?
So 4th at nationals, and then there's an opportunity come back home to the DC area at Catholic University. So to be the head men's track and cross country coach under the legend Coach Fisher, who was the women's coach there for 40 years. So,
wow.
So it was a really good experience. Didn't have many athletes when I started. We had 11 when I started. Now the team has healthy numbers, well over 80 athletes. They eventually combined the program when Coach Fisher retired. So it was a really good experience. DC traffic is terrible.
Yeah.
So I really built a program, built good lifelong relationships with those students as well. Like, we were one of the top academic teams in the country. I believe we were the 8th highest GPA in the nation my last year at Catholic. So we really grew the program. We got individual champions, and we were really on the cusp of doing something special. Like, we were just knocking at the door of top 3 in the landmark conference. When I got there, they were 7th, 8th, 6th every year. So like, it was really building a program, and I guess that's why I'm known for, this building programs. Because so, and then once they combined the program, we hosted cross country championships, and then it just, the traffic, family life, like it really took a toll on me. Like, I got out of coaching for a brief bit, went to teach middle school in the inner city DC. So
wow,
that was a different experience. Teaching middle school, like, didn't know what I was doing.
I don't know. I've heard some track teams are like middle school kids. So
oh man, it was definitely challenging. The kids there were coming from challenging backgrounds, so like, it was really, really tough. And then I started coaching more privately. I coached my alums from Catholic University and doing some USA triathlon stuff, because Catholic is known for their swim team, that they dominate the conference every year. And most of our distance runners would do cross country in the fall, swim in the winter, track in the outdoor in the spring, and then they would come off the swimming peak and run pretty well in like a distance medley at the indoor championships. So
you've coached high school, then you ran at D3, you coached high school, you coached NAIA, you've coached junior college. What's Catholic? What designation are they?
They were D3. So
coach D3. A lot of variety there. What were some of the differences did you notice, or is it all just a designation and you're still just coaching athletes?
So there's definitely differences in the divisions. Like, NAIA is definitely has its quirks. I think is really well run. Like, they don't get the credit they deserve out there. Like, I really wish there was more NAIA schools back east, where home for Beth is, and myself as well. So if there was a NAIA school out here, I would definitely jump on that opportunity.
That's kind of the division you like. Yeah, that's
like,
interesting.
I love coaching the race walk and the marathon. Like, those were really my 2 strengths when I was at Baker. And like, my private clients, they're mostly marathoners. So like, I love coaching the marathon because that's more like a science experiment. Like, the distance running is pretty boring, but like, the events I love is steeplechase, race walk, marathon, because they're different. Like, you're not doing the same thing every day. Like, you're changing things up. So love those events. So like, I thought, like, plus I had a really good mentor in Zach. So like, that made me love it. It was my first opportunity in college coaching. So like, I'm kind of biased there. And then like, I love, like, as they say, the grass is always greener on the other side. Like, JUCO, I love Potomac State and coaching those JUCO kids, because like, it really pushes you to be a really good recruiter, because you're you're rebuilding, reloading every year. You have to get a good class in every year because those kids, the ultimate goal is to move on to a 4-year school. So like, you really want to push them out the door, like Coach Gleason did to me at Muskingum. Like, you really want the best for the athletes because, in my opinion, there's a perfect fit for everybody. And then Catholic was a fun place because DC was home. D3 was what I ran back to my roots. Love D3. I always had the goal getting back to D3. And it was a really good opportunity to build another program and be proud of what I've accomplished.
Yeah.
There.
How many seasons did you stay at Catholic?
So I was there 5 years.
Yeah. Okay.
So I loved it. Like, I'm Catholic because my wife's Catholic, and I converted to Catholicism because of her, because I think that's important in family.
And God struck your church and was like, look, man.
I'm like, I better become Catholic now. Don't want these outsiders coming in. I wasn't going to say that, but now that you bring it up, it comes full circle.
That's right.
But being at School of Faith was very interesting because it was a niche demographic where it was, you recruit a certain demographic to come to Catholic. Like, it wasn't a cheap school, which now that I'm finding out, like, I'm a better recruiter, better coach at the schools that are more affordable to families, because I have a soft spot in my heart to, like, Joe Fisher at Catholic had a foundation for first generation students, and that's the big push here at Keystone as well. Low tuition to make it affordable to families. So like, I was at middle school for a quick minute in the DC area, found out that's not the right fit for me. Yeah, I love coaching privately, but like, trying to make money privately, that's a little bit challenging. So then Keystone came calling. They're like, "Will you be interested in coming out for an interview for this position?" And I'm like, absolutely. Like, originally best families from Pennsylvania, so I always thought I would coach at Pennsylvania because it has the third most colleges in the country, and I think the most per capita. Yeah, like, there are so many colleges out here.
Do you know who first and second is?
I think California.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
And maybe New York or something.
Oh, I guess that makes sense. You know, it's funny because you're talking about Baker, and I can't remember who recently, a guest and I were talking about Kansas and how many, Cameron Babb, the head coach at Washburn University. And we were talking about how many colleges there are in Kansas, you know, and not a populated state by any stretch of the imagination. But I mean, there's so many NAIA, D3, D2, D1, junior college coaches. It's amazing.
I just know in Kansas, between like Lawrence, Topeka, and the Kansas City area, that's like where all the colleges are. That's like 40 colleges right in that area.
Yeah, it's quite amazing. I didn't know that I wouldn't have guessed Pennsylvania. I would have guessed Kansas because I have experience there. California makes a lot of sense. I would not, most people would probably think like a Texas because of the population, but
it might be Texas.
No. There's nothing in West Texas. There's like two schools in West Texas, UTEP and Texas Tech, and that's about it. And I'm being, for anybody who's listening from West Texas, I know there's others, Lubbock Christian. I know, I love you guys. But West Texas has nothing overall. So no, that's why you have to discount Texas, but Pennsylvania makes sense. So did you go from Catholic to Keystone?
Yeah, Catholic to middle school, briefly to Keystone, which, man, it was a dream opportunity here. Tuition is really low, only $14,800. It's the lowest in the Northeast for a private school. So
Northeast, yeah. So tell us about Keystone. I'm afraid I actually don't know much about Keystone. So how many students? You said private schools at D3, NAIA. What are we working with?
It's D3 again.
Yeah, sweet.
It's in the Colonial Athletic Conference. So it's great conference. About 1,000 students.
Oh, wow.
Unbelievable administration. Our president, Tracy, she did sports in college at Gettysburg, so she was a basketball player, so like she really supports athletics here. So like baseball is what we're known for in the College World Series every year. So like unbelievable facilities. Our track is fairly new.
Yeah,
we have,
if you're watching on YouTube, you see in the background of Ian here of his track facility, and I'm like, 1,000 students. That's a pretty stinking nice track for a school with quote unquote only 1,000 students, man. That's awesome.
So this is my 12th year coaching, and by far the best facility I've been blessed to have.
And looks gorgeous, by the way. I mean, like, I love all the trees. Like, it's not just like the parking lot right next to it. It's like, it's beautiful.
It is really unbelievable. And then back there and the trees, there's a bunch of trails. So we have 7 miles of trails right on campus. So
you're in heaven.
So there's a lot of different training. Like, we have the trolley trail, it's pretty flat, good for tempo runs. And then we're not the mountains and the Poconos. So like, it's definitely hilly out here.
Awesome.
So like, we actually host our cross country conference championships in the fall. So like, that's really exciting. We hosted outdoor track this past spring. So it's been the great opportunity for me to really do what I love to do. And that's be a meet director. Like, love running meets. And this is the first time I've been able to host meets as head coach. So that's been really awesome.
So how many years have you been at Keystone at this point?
So fun story. Pandemic hit in March. I was hired in March. I was in HR March 16th, and she's like, you can go home for 2 weeks. School shutting down, COVID. I'm like, all right, see you in 2 weeks. 6 months later. So I moved here in March, lived in the dorms until I found a place. Found a place here last August, moved up here. And then in the meantime, my wife's a teacher. So she's been teaching virtual school the entire year. Then they went back to in-person class in like March. So she's like, well, not much more in the school year. Might as well go back to Maryland, finish out the school year. And then she got a virtual job for summer school. So like, she still was in the same school she was when we moved to Pennsylvania. So we're winning COVID if anybody is.
So you're still kind of getting your feet wet here at Keystone then.
Yeah.
Like, you've been there for a year and I'll call it a half, and you've not been there at all. Really, Yeah.
No, that's the running joke at Keystone. I started the pandemic and haven't been to work.
So how are you're gonna? So obviously you have plans to run meets there. That's clearly a passion of yours, is meet directing and things like that. So to do that, you've got to have a support system and a staff for a well-rounded team. How's that working out?
So I really hit the jackpot here. So really blessed. Like, our assistant coach, he's an alum. He's been coaching here 5 years. He was an intern before I got on board. So like, he's a great sprints, jumps, throws, distance. Wow. He does everything. So like, he's a really good asset to have. And then
what's his name? We got to give him a shout out here.
Shout out to David Strum.
David Strum. Now you coach it all, buddy. Good job.
Yeah, he's as he says, jack of all, master of none.
Master of none, baby. Was he a decathlete? Because that sounds like decathlon.
He wasn't a decathlete, but he knows it all.
Awesome. Good for him.
I have any questions, I go straight to him. And then shout out to our great athletic director, Ryan, who he set up the entire championship meet. He was by my side those 100 hours the week leading into championships. He helped us move the pole vault pit because of the wind direction. And like,
this is your AD.
So, yeah, the athletic director. He's a young guy.
You're the
he's
man.
Younger than me, actually, but man, he's awesome.
Good for him.
I would be hard worker.
I'd be the AD. You'd be like, no, man, get your kids or something.
That's what I thought.
Man. I got a suit on. Come on.
No, he did the hard labor.
Good for Ryan.
So, like, it was awesome. And then in the AD's meeting, he's like, host cross country. So now we're hosting cross country in the fall.
Awesome.
Great course. It's gonna be hilly, so you better do hills this summer.
It? Yeah.
It's really hilly, man. It's awesome. A workout painting for sure.
How did so you get the job in March and then you go home because of COVID, unfortunately. So how was recruiting this past year? You're new to a program. You're not there. You're not having practices and such. How did that go this past year?
It was definitely challenging, but like Zoom made recruiting so much easier than in the past. Before, it's like phone call, set up a date with their parents, bring them to campus, which is pretty challenging when, especially in our sport where you're competing year long. Like you don't have a break. You have to come up 4, 5, 6 hours drive. Like Pennsylvania is a big state. Like so like it was definitely challenging, but like I hopped on these Zoom and really tried to recruit as many people as I could. And we have a big freshman class coming in the fall. So like we're going to be a young team. And the nice thing with COVID is nobody graduates because they're like, oh, I still have eligibility. Grad school, like Keystone does a alumni discount. So my seniors are coming back for grad school.
Awesome.
So it's awesome to like, usually when a new coach comes in, retention's a big challenge, but here, like they bought into my passion, which is challenging here because I'm the 4th head coach at Keystone in 4 years. So like, that's definitely been challenging, but building a culture here, nice thing, we're in Factoryville, so I call us the track and field factory.
I love that. You got to get a shirt with that. That's awesome. I love
yeah,
that.
definitely.
So you've been to, several different places. You've worked under many legendary coaches, really. You've also forged your own as a head coach. So what's kind of your philosophy here? There's obviously a theme here of building programs, and it seems like if you're the 4th coach in 4 years, Keystone's in need of stability and building. So what's kind of your philosophy is regarding the team, the structure of your staff? What are you hoping to get accomplished here in the next 2, 3, 4 years?
So like every AD is like, it's a numbers game, but like for our sport, it truly is a numbers game because you really need the numbers in order to have success on the track. Like if you don't have a big team, you're not getting many points at the track championships. You can get by with cross country, no problem, but track is really where the points are, and it's 3 sports, so you need to try winning indoor and outdoor as well as cross country. So really building anybody that has a passion for the sport, because like we don't discriminate here on the track, because I've seen great stories where people develop a great deal in college. It's just getting that individual attention, that love. So like what I really preach is being a family first. Like we need to be a big family for life. Like I still take great pride in having relationships with my athletes from Baker even. Like I was just, a good example is I was just at Rehoboth Beach this weekend for the 4th, and I went to lunch with my Catholic athletes, my Baker athletes. So like I really build this brand of being a family, like, because that's what creates a championship culture. You don't have to like everybody on your team, but you have to get along with them. Like I don't like the event groups being segregated. I like one big family with one goal. Like as an athlete, I like when at Muskingum when the distance and throwers got along. But like I really want like everybody to get along and really be one big family, enjoy meals together, because you're going to spend a whole lot of time together. So
I like how you put that in. Sometimes when we say like we want to be a family, we think of this very kumbaya, everybody's holding hands, everybody gets along, everybody agrees, etc. But you made the statement, and I thought it was really smart there, that we're not always going to agree, but we're always going to get along. And that like when you think about what a family, like I think about my family, it's like, oh yeah, I don't always agree with my family, but at the end of the day, I still love them, right? So I love that aspect. Now with track, that's hard, right? You mentioned distance runners and throwers, and we just had Carrie Lane from University of Wyoming on. Go back and listen to her. She was a distance runner in high school and college, and then becomes one of the best throws coaches in this country. So, and she actually, we talked about how throwers and distance runners are actually a lot more alike than than we like to think. But with
we love to eat.
that's what she said. Exactly. Yeah. Go back and listen to it. That's exactly what she goes. She goes, first of all, that's the two groups that eat the most on your team. We can destroy a buffet here now. Come on. So no, I loved it. So with track, when you're talking about, family and cohesiveness and teammates, you're dealing with some radically different groups, right? You've got distance runners, and they're off on their 10-mile runs. I'm being very general here. The throwers, they're in the weight room and generally practice before everybody else for safety and facility considerations. You have your sprinters and hurdlers. And then even differently is maybe your high jumpers and horizontal jumpers. Pole vaulters, they're their own thing. I don't want to say clique, but they're their own. How do you as a head coach unify these 3, 4, 5 different, radically different groups?
So my big thing is I don't see myself as an event coach. I'm not a distance coach. I'm more of an administrator, the father figure for the program, the CEO, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But so
there's that MBA speaking right there. I love it.
So I make a point to be at every single event group, every single practice.
Yeah.
And they're like, Coach, you're here at the track all day. I'm like, I'd rather be on the track than in my office.
Mm-hmm.
I love the sport. Like, that's what I do. And now in the Zoom era, I don't have to be in my office to have a recruit visit. I just jump on Zoom and have my recruit meetings. So I make a big point to build the relationships with each individual athlete and get to know them as an individual. I have a lot of individual meetings, and we don't talk really about track. We talk about what their hobbies are, what teams do you like, and me being a big Nationals fan, I obviously have a lot of Phillies, Mets, Yankees fans on my team. So we get into some rivalry arguments. Or movies or different sports, whatever it is, get to know the athletes. And then what I like to do is I tell all my incoming freshmen, yeah, you want probably room with somebody on the team because you will have similar schedules, but don't room with a distance runner if you're a distance athlete. Room with a sprinter, a thrower, a jumper. So right off the bat, we get them into the groups. So we will have their quads will be one jumper, one thrower, one sprinter, one distance runner. And that's really how the family type atmosphere comes together, because then the different event groups, they know somebody in each event group. And then when they come together at practice or dinner, meals, they really get to enjoy their teammates as people. And then they go with whatever teammates have the similar interests as themselves.
Man, so much to unpack there. A lot of great stuff, Ian. Because I was going to ask you, I love how you make an effort to go see each of the event groups, because I think that's important. A lot of times the head coach, maybe specifically if that head coach is a distance coach, but I think any head coach, you have a lot of responsibilities as the head coach, a lot of paperwork, recruiting, staff, et cetera, plus you're coaching your own event group. So it's real easy for the head coach to kind of get isolated and not go see the jumpers or the sprinters or the other groups, right? So I love that you make that effort. I was going to ask you, how or do you trickle that down to your assistant coaches and your team? And you went right into, I love the team roommate situation. Okay, distance runners, you may not actually ever see a thrower at practice or track meet. I'm generalizing, but I'm saying, a hammer thrower, you unfortunately may never see a hammer thrower because they're usually way off from the track, unfortunately, sometimes, right? So, but you can live in the quad type roommates and at least get to know them as a person. And I love that you said that, know them as a person, right? Who is the person, not the hammer thrower. It's who is John, who is Cindy? That's so that to me is the critical part about this, cohesiveness and familyness, is how do we get to know each other as people?
Right. And that's really huge when it comes to the culture of the team, because then you get the entire team surrounding track cheering on the team, especially at the end of the day, at the 4x4, they all know each other as individuals. So they know the names to cheer for, not just come on Giants or whatever.
Right.
And then for my assistant coaches, like being D3 level, like assistant coaches and head coaches wear many hats because you don't have a big staff like a Division I program has. Like David, he's a campus safety officer. That's his full-time job. And then he volunteers for us. And then he basically does everything. So he's a huge asset for the program. Then we have a student assistant, JT, who he's more of a distance background, which is great to have somebody with a distance background. So I can go bounce around to the different events. So I don't have to like keep taking splits. And like I like to bounce around during practice, and I cheer them on that way. Like come meet day, I'm probably the most passionate guy on the track, the loudest guy. Like I'm pretty calm and collected as a person. Like I'm pretty laid back, but on meet day, I'm competitive. I like to win. So I don't like losing too much. So
so kind of bringing this back to what we talked about earlier. So I get this vision of you at a track meet. Like I kind of get this, jumping around, hooping, hollering, getting the troops excited. Do you have any implications with your heart today?
No, I haven't since college.
Awesome. Did your resting heart rate go up? Are you like crazy, like a 35 now?
Yeah, I drink coffee now. So
oh my gosh, yeah. Oh, is that right? Well, that's a good thing, right? That means your body's able to handle that.
Yeah.
Oh.
So like I'm the guy with the windmill. I'm like a third base coach out there. So like I wave in the team, although they still have run because they still have a lap to go. But
you're the constant windmill, yeah.
And like actually COVID was awesome because I had a mask now. So like my team can't understand what I'm saying anyway. So like the mask, like at least I had an excuse this year.
Well, you brought up an important word or just a minute ago when you said the word culture. And that's ultimately what you're building, right? And every track coach, not just head coach, that's what you're building. And you're either building positive culture or you're building negative culture. And I love that example you gave of like the team coming around, like for the 4x4, because it's the last event, things like that. Whenever I go to a track meet, and it's usually conference, I get it because that's when we normally score meets. We should be scoring more meets, in my opinion. But when the team gathers around for the 4x4, and it's not every team, it's a select few teams that have that culture. It's something special when they're all joined together, united to root for their teammates. And it kind of like, whenever I see that, I always think about who's that head coach, that they're doing something right here. So I love that you're pushing forward on that positive culture there at Keystone.
Absolutely. And I like to keep it fun and energetic. Like I will make bets with my team. I lose most of them. At Potomac State, I said I would run the next race if we win. We won, so I had to run a race. At Keystone this year, I said if we win, I'm jumping in the steeple pit.
Nice.
It's our first meet. We were hosting first meet in a year because of the pandemic. So we ended up winning the meet. So then my team's like, steeple. I'm like, man, we already created the culture. Job well done. Jumped in the steeple pit. They loved me for it. They're like, well, if we win conference, then we need a bigger celebration. I'm like, just don't break my neck.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. There has to be a bar somewhere on this thing, man.
So it's been interesting. So like for my assistant coaches, I like to push them the way that Zach pushed me. Like my ultimate goal for my assistant coaches is to be a head coach. So like I will send them jobs when I get them emailed to me. And like I'm like, don't stay in your event group. Shout out to David because he does everything.
He has no event group.
Like he spread his wings and he does everything.
Yeah.
Because he's been the interim head coach here a few times. So like he knew what it took to run a program. But like now he's like, well, we have something special going here at Keystone. Like I'm alum here. I want to see this program do special things. So he's all in, all on board with everything we do. And he's been a fantastic help. Great recruiter. Like we're bringing a really talented sprints class next year, which on the women's side is going to be fun to watch that 4x4. And then shout out to Ryan, our athletic director. He saw what we're doing, and not just our program, but every program here at Keystone. So for the first time at Keystone, we started a graduate assistant program. So
awesome.
So, and it's a great deal here. They get room and board and their MBA paid for. So like,
yeah,
it's for a GA, that's a pretty good deal. And
well, we have a saying, our CEO has a saying, healthy things grow. So I mean, that's growth, right? They're adding positions, they're adding coaching staff slots there. That's healthy, man. It's growing. That's awesome.
And they're renovating, putting in a new gym floor. They're putting in a new field house, locker rooms up at the track. Awesome. So like, it's, as they always say, growth at college is a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Man, Ian, I'm just so excited for you because you're excited. Your enthusiasm is contagious, man. I could see how these kids, like, they go there and it's like, oh, it's pump up time. Let's rock and roll, man, no matter what event they're doing. And I'm just so, proud to see the leadership that you're giving there from the entire perspective of the program. And it's really, it comes on the shoulders of the Giants that you've had before, right? Your other head coaches, obviously, as we talked about, Zach and other people that have done so much into your life, man. And you are just, you're becoming that future Giant. And I didn't know, so is Keystone the Giants?
We're the Giants.
I love unique nicknames too. So that's awesome. I love that. But man, just so happy and excited for you. You've got a new fan, man. I can't wait to see what the Keystone Giants do coming up when in a full season. You'll have a full season this year.
Full season, vaccinated, no mask. Like, it's time to rock and roll.
We got to figure out what's next. Steeplechase, you got dunked there. What's the? We got to keep pushing that, man, because you're going to win many, many championships, I'm afraid.
It's the plan. It's the goal.
That's it, man. Well, Ian, thank you so much, man. I say this every podcast because it's the absolute truth. The most valuable thing that you can give me is your time. And so I'm just so thankful that you'd spend, an hour and a half, man. That's that went by fast, to be honest with you.
Man, it flew by.
Yeah, but I'm just so thankful that you'd spend time with us today. I've loved learning your journey. The cool thing about it is the book's not done, right? There are many, many chapters left in your story. And I think they're going to be as exciting, if not more exciting than the chapters that we talked about today, man. So I'm just so thankful for you to be here today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely, man. And thank you guys for being here. I've already asked you to share the podcast, so I'm not going to ask you to do it again. But I'm just going to say thank you for being here. Your time is valuable as well. And you spent it here with us for an hour and a half learning about this guy, a future Giant and a current Giant, I guess, right? Keystone Giants. So just so thankful for you being here. Join us next week. We'll do it all over again. Have a great day.